is a recap of the fourth round of the GRENKE Chess Classic in Karlsruhe. Again, of course, with the grandmaster Jan Gustafsson. Quite an eventful day, I think, today, with the highly anticipated game Caruana versus Carlsen. It's the first encounter since the World Championship last year. What can you say us about that game?
Yeah, the players repeated their theoretical discussion from the World Championship match. They both stuck to their guns. Caruana played 1e4, Carlsen played the Sveshnikov Sicilian, and we get this line with 7 knight to d5, which Caruana played in the match. Carlsen, since the match, has won 3 games there with the black pieces, but of course Caruana is on another level when it comes to knowledge and strength in those positions. He managed to put a lot of pressure on Magnus, it looked like, out of the opening. Came armed with a very interesting idea, this queen a4, queen c2. And Magnus, had to find a lot of tricky moves to stay in the game. But he did. He's Magnus, he's good and consolidated. And Caruana wasn't quite sure where the game turned, but in the end, it was white, actually, that had to be very careful to make a draw. And to his credit, Caruana managed to do that by being very precise. It's one of the hardest things in chess, I think, if you're pressing and then somehow things get a little out of hand and you have to start being careful to neutralize the opponent's pressure, especially if that opponent is Magnus Carlsen. But Caruana did so and earned a hard-fought draw, or earned is maybe the wrong word. It was a hard-fought draw in the end.
Hard-fought draw. And it was the only draw of the day, and the other games were all decisive. Let's move over to Aronian, who won his first game of the tournament against Peter Svidler. Quite a smooth game, it looked like. A smooth game for him.
Yeah, that game, frankly, was not much of a game. It was a long theoretical line, the position around move 18-19. Peter Lagrave was talking about a lot that his analysis started there, and even I had seen it before, and I think Peter mixed something up, played this move rook f to e8, after which by force he just gets a horrible position, and after the sequence queen takes a6, queen back to e2, because basically white manages to double the black pawns in the center, and he ends up with isolated pawns on e6 and e5, combined with bad pieces, so it was fairly hopeless early on for Peter, and Levon converted without particular troubles. Bit lucky, or lucky is the wrong word, but I'm sure Levon didn't mind that now that he's an e4 player, that game was still played on his home turf, because Svidler chose the marshal, and of course Levon has been the greatest marshal expert for the last 15 years at the very least, so tough game for Peter Svidler.
Okay, and another win again for Vishy Anand with the black pieces against Vallejo. That wasn't that easy for Vishy.
I'm not sure if it was easy or not, but he once again got a position that looked very dangerous strategically out of the openings. Funnily, similar situation to the one he had against Magnus Carlsen the day before. He has the black pieces, his opponent has the 2 bishops, and his opponent has this pawn chain running at him on the king side with the pawn on f4 and g4, g5 coming, so it looked very, very scary strategically. And Vishy also mentioned that he didn't like his position. I wasn't sure if he did it all on purpose, because it looked like a smooth victory then, but that was mainly due to Paco choosing the wrong plan, not pushing his pawns up the board, but instead going for piece play with his bishop to g5, then after f6, g6. Black just has enough defenders, and Vishy's play was faster on the queen side. And Vishy, as he often does, made it look easy with the knights wrestling control of the game, scoring a point, and I believe moving into the lead with 3 out of 4 together with Magnus.
Yeah, very good. Kudos to him, very good. Longest game of the day was Georg Meyer against Maxime Vacher-Lagrave. Maxime played a good game and it seemed to have an advantage, but kind of slipped away, I think. But in the end, he won.
Yeah, always hard to say with these grind-out victories, because frankly I was expecting it to just end peacefully for a long time. Of course you have to give credit to Maxime for keeping up the pressure, but I'm sure Georg will be very upset at himself for missing some easier defenses when the black pawn was still on g5 or g4. It shouldn't be so hard to at least sacrifice the knight for it and get to this same position that they had in Carlsen and Caruana in the end, with rook versus rook and knight, which is a reasonably easy draw at that level. Of course, Maxime kept asking questions and was avoiding any easy scenarios there. I'm not quite sure where it turned. There was one moment very late when Georg played knight to g2 check, which I thought looked strange. Well, if you put the knight on e2, avoiding this pawn advancing to g3. It still looked like a draw, so yeah, I'm sure Georg will be unhappy about that one.
I think so too. And let's move over to the last game, Naiditsch versus Kaymer. We gonna look at a position from that game.
Yeah, we can do that. In general, it looked like another very hard-fought game in which Kaymer played well strategically, which is a story that keeps repeating itself, even though Naiditsch seemed to make an effort to avoid theory, was some close Sicilian, not so typical structure, but Kaymer played a bunch of very interesting moves, as h6, putting his bishop on h4, and got praise from, for example, Ivan Aronian for a strategic play. But then things got a little out of hand, and once again, with limited time, Naiditsch started a very dangerous attack, which we will look at now. So this is a position from the game, Naiditsch versus Kaymer, after things had already gotten a little out of hand for Vincent Kaymer. Early on, when white played f5, he missed a good chance to keep the position close with pawn to g5, but he allowed this f takes g6, opening the position up. And here, the computer says that white already has some quote-unquote boring solutions, like knight to f4, increasing the pressure. But Naiditsch came up with something much more spectacular. He played knight to h5, offering up this knight, and Kaymer decided to take it because this is a serious threat, and queen takes g5. I believe queen f2 was also trouble. So Kaymer took, and Naiditsch, after having sacrificed a whole knight, now he offers more material up for grabs, plays the very strong move rook to f6, just closing this diagonal and saying, if you want to take the rook, be my guest, then we will open the g-file and I will checkmate you there. And if not, I will just increase the attack. Knight f4, intending knight takes h5 is looming. And it turns out that black does not really have a defense here. Kaymer, after some thought, I think decided to take the rook. G takes f6, queen d6 check. But even though white is a whole rook down here, his remaining pieces coordinate so well that there is no escape for the king. Currently the threat is queen g3, followed by queen to g7 checkmate. And there is just not a whole lot that black can do about it. I think the game continued. King to f8, still queen to g3, threatening checkmate. You have to make a square for the king on e8, rook e d8, and Naiditsch played another nice move. The very quiet but absolutely deadly rook to e1, just overloading the black defenses by threatening, among other things, queen g7, followed by rook takes e6 check, or the direct rook takes e6. There was just not much Kaymer could do about it, and he would resign a few moves later. So a very brutal and nice final attack by Arkady Naiditsch, giving a knight with a quiet move, and then another exchange with a quiet move, and crushing through with his remaining pieces.
Kind of a textbook attack. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it in any textbooks, but that's why it was impressive.
Impressive. Okay. Thank you very much for this recap for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.